Today in the shop we're working on this 2005 or 2006, I don't recall what year, C4500. This truck I bought quite a while back. It was part of a package deal. I had to buy trucks I didn't want in order to get the trucks I did want. Well, this was one of the trucks I didn't really want, but it is what it is. It was part of a, I think, 8 or 9 package deal, and since then we've sold off some of the other stuff, and this needs repair, and I just really didn't put it high on the priority list to get fixed, so here it is. Its time has come. I have a list of trucks, and I go down the list by priority of value versus profit, and this one's very low on the list, because for what we had to give for this to make the deal happen to what it's actually worth, there's not a lot of profit here. So I save that kind of stuff for when I'm caught up with the good stuff, and now it's time to get rid of it. So what this truck is like I said, it's a 12-foot dump bed. It's got the Isuzu Max diesel, Allison automatic, hydraulic brakes. One feature that makes this better than several of these that I've had over the years is it's four-wheel drive. Contrary to belief, a lot of guys think that GM made these in four-wheel drive, and they never did. These coming out of the factory, it didn't matter what configuration, the C4500, 5500, whatever that was, it came out of the factory. Just standard rear-wheel drive with a solid front axle with no drive. And then typically it went to a conversion company. Like this one was probably done by Monroe. Monroe would take out the standard straight axle, leave the leaf spring in place, leave the shocks in place, swap in a front drive axle with the appropriate GM goofy bolt pattern, and they would come to the back and they would add a jockey shaft, we call it, that goes between the transmission and the transfer case. Put a big long drive shaft back here for the front, make this bracket, and hang a divorce transfer case off of the frame back here, and then shorten up the rear drive shaft. Again, these never came factory. I have people argue with me about this all the time. I guess they think just because there's a switch inside, well, as a matter of fact, I'll just show you the switch. But they think because there's a switch inside in the dash and not something underneath it that, you know, it's a factory deal, and it's not. Truck needs a seat in a bad way. Get you a light on the subject. So there's your four-wheel drive switch. Do you notice something kind of goofy? They basically took one of these plugs out and made a switch plate to fit in here. There's nothing GM about that. This truck's got 140 some thousand miles on it. It's got a power mirror. It's got cruise control. It's got air conditioning and trailer brake. The dump bed's electric over hydraulic. The windshield leaks. The seat's torn up. The seat is just awful, like every other GM truck like that. They all look about the same. Good thing is this is you get this seat out of a GMC van, one of them Safaris, Savannahs, whatever. So this is an electric over hydraulic dump bed. One of the things we're going to talk about is why this truck wasn't attractive to me. I mean, I'm not going to say it's because it's a GM, because that's not the case. I'm interested in any truck that's profitable. If it's profitable and we can sell the truck and not do someone a disservice, I'm not going to sell things that we know are going to have troubles. But this truck's profitable. It's not going to make the kind of profit I'd like to make, but it will make money. The problem I saw with this truck when I looked at it was it has several maintenance items that need taken care of. One is the batteries are bad. Apparently their mechanic was what we call the 50% club. He only put in 50% of the bolts. It's supposed to be a bolt that goes into here, but goes through here to hold this thing from sliding all over. Maybe that paints a better picture, you can understand. That's what's supposed to be there. And this guy also believed in compression fittings. They redid the brake lines, put that NiCad brake line on it, and then came back here, apparently ran out and decided a compression fitting was a good idea on a truck that's probably overloaded most of its life. And then I found there's another compression fitting right there We'll lift the hood here. And you can probably see that compression fitting. There's two of them right there. So those are things we're going to take care of. We're going to get rid of all those compression fittings. We're going to check all the other brake lines. We're going to put 2 batteries in it. And I'm always going to do a little bit of cleaning. Not too much. What else are we going to do on this? Forget. Point of facts, one of the reasons I think this is not an attractive truck to me is they put a 12-foot dump bed on this, and when I measure this out, it has from the back of the cab to the center of the axle versus the center of the axle to the rear of the dump bed. There's far too much weight, in my opinion, past the center of the axle. This is a heavy truck for what it is. It's full drive, it's diesel, and it's got this big 12-foot dump bed on it. This truck is very limited on its abilities because it weighs so much. These things came in several GVWs. The most common we saw for a 4500 was 17.5. That's what this one is. 17,500 pounds. This truck is cresting 12,000 pounds. It's right at the 12,000 pound mark. Take 12,000, you've got 5,500, that's 2.5 tons, 2 3/4 tons that you can put in this truck. And then, if it was designed for a landscaper hauling mulch, it would be okay, something light. But if you're hauling stone, gravel, dirt, excavation, tear outs, whatever, and you're pulling a trailer on the back, which that ball has plenty of wear on it, so they were pulling the trailer with it, you have so much weight past the rear axle, you're lifting the front axle, which is dangerous. You don't have enough weight on the steers, you got to be careful how you load it, all that kind of stuff. The bed itself is in decent shape. I mean, it needs blasted and repainted. There's several spots on the side that really need taken care of. I know a lot of guys are going to be offended here. I'm going to pull this apart, and apparently they have a lot more money than we do because they would go out and buy all new batteries. This truck came with 2 batteries in the factory. I'm putting 2 batteries in it. It has 3 now, but they're lower cold cranking amp batteries than what was supposed to be in it. So having 3 batteries didn't do much for it anyways. We're going to put it back to 2 the way it was. Even though that's electric over hydraulic, I understand that. It'll run just fine off 2 batteries. It doesn't need a third. It's just pointless. I have another truck that I bought that I am so deep in it and I'm parting it out and I'm trying to recover some cost out of that. So if I can save some money on this one, I can assign that cost of the batteries to this truck. Helps all the way around. So let's get at it. I'm sure the designers and engineers were sitting there working up this slide out battery tray one day and thought, yeah, that'll just be great. Yeah, well, I'm not a big fan of it. If you have dead batteries, you got to have an 18mm wrench, take 2 bolts out, and then slide the tray out to get to your batteries. There's just a little 3/8 post on the under the hood that just has a couple little number 1 cables coming to it, number 1 wire size, where you can't get as much amperage through it. If you were jumping them off and they were dead, it would take you forever, where you can run a good couple 1/0s and hook them right to the batteries themselves and get jumped off. I don't think it's a good idea that it takes tools to get to the batteries themselves. I understand they're saving space, and they probably figured doing it this way, you didn't have any battery trays on the frame, so your upfits are a whole lot easier, and I get all that, but this is just kind of a nuisance. This truck originally came with 2 batteries. When they added that dump bed, it's electric or hydraulic, they put the 3rd battery in, but we're going to go back just the way it was with 2 batteries. Alright, so these are 2 batteries. They're not Napa batteries, of course, but they're just fine. What I mean by that is they're not as expensive as Napa. They're from November of 2019, so what are we, like 4 or 5 months old? We can live with that. Okay, let's get them hooked up.
My wife is using solvent here to remove the adhesive that was left behind after the decals were removed. She uses a real soft cloth, and she'll either use acetone or lacquer thinner, mineral spirits, Goo Gone, or that 3M round disc. It's called the eraser for getting the adhesive off. Works really good. She changes the solvent based on what the paint is, if it's been repainted, if it's base coat clear enamel, but here she's just about done. She goes the other side and does it too.
This is a remote. It just real easy plugs in. I took that out now because we're gonna have to set that bed down or whatever to clear my light. It's gonna have to come down some, clear the light in the garage door opener. So I ended up putting that battery cable back on, but I'm gonna pull it out of here first. I'll put it back on.
This is a battery disconnect switch they put in the footwell of the driver's door, and there's these rubber caps that are on here that are so old and they're really hard, and I really struggled getting them off. But I'm going to take it loose here. I did disconnect the switch. I'm going to take the cable off, pull it out, and I put the lock washer nut back on the switch. I don't know if we'll end up using that for anything else. There's no sense in me removing it and then having a hole in that footwell, for mice to get in and all that. So I just left it in place and just, put a cap over top of it. I had to go find one out of my parts drawer, just a little rubber cap, but we just left it in place. But this took a little longer than I'd hoped, but those rubber caps that were on it, I can't believe how hard they were to get off of there. That's why I used that one trim tool, but we're just about done here. I'm disconnecting the negative battery terminals here because I am probably going to be using the plasma cutter, or there's a possibility. I've connected and reconnected these batteries in this process I don't know how many stinking times, but it's necessary. If you're going to use a plasma cutter on there, they need to be disconnected. Then I put them back on and back the truck out. Then I bring them back in and, disconnect it again so I can cut off some brackets on the back, but it's better safe than sorry. These batteries are out of the parts truck I was telling you about. They're TRP batteries. They're, like I said, they're November of 2019 and it's only February, so they're not that old. So this was a little money saver here. Well, really not saving money. I'm buried in the other truck. It's nowhere near the truck that a friend of mine told me it was. So I have to try and absorb that cost and use that cost everywhere I can, and it's not going too well. I don't think I'm going to lose money on it, but if I figured my labor in it for taking it apart, then I'm really in the pickle for that one. Pay attention to the shoulder on this bolt. You see how rusted it is. It's lost a lot of its material, and almost all the ones in there are just like this. What I'm doing now is I'm putting a strap over top of the subassembly, tying the subassembly to the frame, because I have the dump bed up in the air, and if I take all these mounting bolts loose, the likeness it'll flip back is pretty high. I don't want it coming loose, so I've taken one end of my strap, wrapped it around the frame, and then over top of that subassembly, and then take this ratchet strap and tie it down, because I've only taken off just 3 bolts on this side, so I don't want to go any farther until I got this secured. And I'm cranking on it pretty hard here, enough that I'm pulling the subassembly kind of inward on itself, but this will work. Make sure it's safe. This pipe you saw me remove is just one of 3 safeties I've got in there. There's a piece of angle iron underneath that hoist you can see, plus there's a piece of timber at the pinch point at the very back of the hinge. That was another one of them rusty bolts there, but I set this back in, and now we're going to go to the other side.
You mean you're done with this?
I think. Okay, that's got all the bolts on either side. We've got the battery disconnected, the remote disconnected out, reconnected. The only thing left is 2 bolts back here in the very back, which I don't want to take them out until they're back here. I'll show you in a minute, but I don't want to take them out until we set the dump bed deck back down.
Turn it on again?
Yeah. Okay, we have lighting, which I've unplugged. There's just one plug for the rear lights. Someone did that very nicely, and it hasn't been compromised. Now we have these bolts, right here. These look to be 15/16, and I'm doubting those are going to come out. We may have to disconnect the batteries and then plasma cut those out. We'll see. Make sure you have a fire extinguisher around.
Okay, here's one.
You've probably figured out by now I'm taking the bed off. I decided to take this off because I think it's actually hurting the value of the truck. I know a lot of guys are going to disagree. They think it's worth more money as a dump truck than it is not. But the way that dump bed was set up, it didn't work well. And I think I have several options of what we can do with this truck to create value. And that bed can be used on another truck, or we can sell it off, or whatever, to recover some of the cost of this truck itself. Again, I had to pay more for this truck than I really wanted to in the beginning, so now we'll get back to cutting. Now that we got a look at the side of the truck, you know, a better angle, you can see what I was talking about. You got almost 50% of the bed is from the center of the axle back, and the other 50% is from the center of the axle forward, which is just not a good combination. You know, if I was to keep this truck as a dump truck, I'd want to move that axle back at least 1 foot, something around there. This is an 84 cab axle. I think the next one would be like 102 or 108, something like that is normal, but it would have made it so much safer and be able to use the truck to its capacity, because, you know, the way it was, you're putting almost all the weight on that dump. You're putting far more weight on the rear axle than you are the front, so you're going to overload that rear axle a lot the majority of the time. I don't know what we're going to do with this bed. We're going to set it aside for right now. We might clean it up, put it on another truck. We might just sell it. I don't know, but we'll just get it out of our way for right now.
Alright, it came off pretty good, except for this. This was wrapped in the hydraulic lines, which I didn't notice. So I was just going to cut the line, and I thought, well, I'll just take it loose down here. And then I saw this. I don't know if I'm even showing you guys. There's yet another compression fitting. I just don't understand that. Makes no sense. But anyways, it's so much easier to get to the stuff now. We're going to clean this all up. I need to get these brackets off, and we're going to clean the frame up so I'm not working in filth all day. Just knock the loose rust off, clean it up a little bit. But first, what are we going to do?
Have lunch.
Have lunch.
my wife's going to continue to clean up this frame. She's using that Milwaukee angle grinder with the wire wheel on it, and you see she's got her safety gear on. She's got glasses on, plus a face shield, plus gloves. I'm sure somebody will say something about us not having masks, but you know, it is what it is. Maybe next time we will. I went to work on the back of this hitch. You can see these pieces of steel that come off each side of the hitch. They're kind of like a miniature ICC bumper, and they're welded in here on this plate before the plate is slid into the frame and then welded to the frame. So there's a lot of weird angles in here, and I really struggle with the plasma cutter trying to get in there and get it cut well. I could cut a little bit, get it to move some, and then I can get the plasma cutter in just a little bit more. And I keep losing my ground for the plasma cutter. It's the clamp's to my left over here, and I keep bumping it. So I'd go to strike the arc on the plasma cutter, and I'd lose the ground. But I wanted to replace these because they were all bent up. Looked like they had put a trailer on that had quite a bit taller I-beam on the front, and it was jackknifed and dented these. I was going to try and straighten them, but it's fairly thick material, and where the bends are, I didn't think I'd be able to get it nice enough that I'd be happy with it, so I figured I'd just cut them off and replace them. They only come out I think they're like 28 inches long total, each one. So they're not very, very wide as far as on the outside of the truck. So I was going to go a little bit wider, and I thought if I went wider, I could put an extra brace on there and go ahead and put like oval lights in it and hang my mud flaps off there. This truck is probably, I'm leaning towards putting a service body on this because the truck's four-wheel drive. It's got 140,000 miles on it. The engine's a reman Duramax, and the transfer case is a remanufactured unit. And I'm thinking about putting that service body on because in the off-road service industry, guys are always looking for a truck that's got good high center, like something that's fairly high off the ground, good ground clearance, and is four-wheel drive. And this truck is a 4500, not as good as a 5500, but this truck with a service body and a little auto crane and an air compressor, welder, whatever, guy could outfit it however they wanted. But I think that's the most profitable situation for this truck. I think the next thing would be a four-wheel drive wrecker. But putting a wrecker on this truck is far more expensive than putting the service body on, and I don't think it makes the margin that the service body does. So I've located the service body. We're going to go take a look at it and see if it suits us, if it's nice enough. If it is, that might be what goes on. If not, I'm considering putting my yellow, or my flatbed I was working on for the yellow Freightliner. It's 12 foot. And it has, the way the bulkhead's made, it would fit perfect on this truck. I already have the gooseneck. I'd need to move the hitch back farther anyway, so may end up taking this off. But I've also measured this out. I can actually take this to a 108 cab to axle. It's currently a 84 cab to axle, which is 7 foot. 108 is what, 9 foot even? Is that right? 86 is 102, yeah. So that'd be 108's 9 foot. So there's enough room on this frame that I could go 108 cab to axle and use that bed, and I'm thinking seriously about that too. It's just not quite as profitable as the service body. So I finally got that back bracket off the other side. It left some really jagged cuts and a lot of metal still on there. So I'm going to take a plasma cutter and try and burn off as much as I can to make my grinding down to a minimum. Here in a minute, a friend of mine stops by, and I stop what I'm doing and go visit with him for a little bit. But my wife keeps going on this frame. She worked on this, I don't know, how many hours do you think you were working on that frame?
I'm not sure. It took me quite a while, and there was obviously dust everywhere, and my shield was dusted over, which I didn't realize. I thought it was just scratched. So I had trouble seeing, but
Yeah,
I managed.
it's a lot of work cleaning up one of these frames and getting it ready to go. It's what you're seeing here was we had the dump bed off by lunchtime. We started what, 10:30, something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, we started like that, and then got the dump bed off, got it set off to the side, and all that kind of crap, and then we started on this after lunch. So we probably started on this back on it. We stopped about noon for lunch. About 12:30 we got back at it. Right here it's about 3 o'clock. So we've got about 2.5 hours of messing around. And I was going to replace these things, and the more I'm looking at this plate and the possibility of what we're going to do, more than likely the next part you'll see, I'll probably be cutting that out of there. But I just need to get it all cleaned up. We shouldn't have much more of this plasma cutting and wire wheeling stuff, and I'll be getting on to the brake lines. I had to order the brake line. They were out of 1/4 inch, which is what we need for this truck. And I wanted to get 2 rolls because I don't think one will do it. I think we're going to need more than 1 full roll. So I ordered up 2 rolls and the extra fittings, that we're going to use. I'm not a big fan of that NiCad stuff. I don't know what. It's just it just seems like it's not that strong because it's so easy to work with. I really almost prefer to use the epoxy coated steel line instead. It's a little harder to work with, but it seems to work real well. I'm taking the grinder and just gonna go over some spots that my wife was having trouble with. I mean, that's kind of a big job for her because you put that big wire wheel. Well, it's not really that big, but it's big for her hands. But she did a really nice job on that frame. It really turned out well. It'll paint up good. We'll have to still pressure wash and all that, but yeah, we'll just keep going on this project. We'll see where we end up. I'm not exactly sure yet, but we're making progress, so we'll just keep on going.
I stewed on this hitch plate here, and I'm just not happy with it. So I believe I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out and replace it with something different. They use this is like a buyer's plate that's already pre-made, or some manufacturer made it, I believe. And whoever put it in, I mean, the welds held because they were towing something so heavy that it shoved that plate up, the trailer up against a pintle hook, and actually lifted it or twisted it, however you want to say it. It was enough to, you see that? Kind of kick it just a little bit. We tried to straighten it, and it got a lot better because it was far worse than that, but I'm just not happy with it. So I'm going to start removing that. I think I'm going to use a torch and just cut it out. But I really don't want to damage the frame at all. You know, I can gouge this plate a little bit, and that's really not as big a deal to me as the frame itself. I slowed down that video so you could see this plate falling. I knew I wouldn't be able to hold it, and there really wasn't a good way to get the grate all in here and support it and take all that time. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to get it to the end, get it close, and then I'm going to step back and let it fall. And it worked out okay. Took a torch and kind of fine cleaned some of this up. I got one little spot right there that I may have got into the frame just a little bit, but not too bad. The other side, you know, I started on this side cleaning up, so I left more weld on this side than I did this side, because by the time I got over here, I was, you know, had a lot more finesse going on. But anyway, you can see this thing's had multiple things mounted to it right here because there's only 2 bolt holes. I don't know if the guys putting it on drilled the holes wrong or what the deal was. There's 2 holes here too. I don't know what those were for. I guess it doesn't matter. So now what we're going to do is get the grinder with a cutting wheel, take it off, put the grinder on it, and we're going to get this all cleaned up here. Well, that was faster than I thought it would be. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit on the bottom side down here now. Alright, we're going to change out from the standard, you know, grinder blade, you guys, grinding disc you see me use, to a flat disc. I ordered these online off Amazon, and I think they're a 10-pack. Seems to be the most cost-effective way to get them. Alright. Basically what we're doing here is going from that coarse grinding disc to a flap wheel, and this is basically going to just pretty this up and make it look better. Gets rid of all them grind marks and makes it smooth. Alright, so the flapper wheel cleans it up real nice. You'll see there's one little spot right there. I don't know if that's weld or if I gouged it, but I'm guessing it's weld because there's a speckle in there of weld splatter. I'm not sure what they had going on right here, but we'll have to weld that closed if we end up needing this part of the frame. Here we got a little spot where I got into it, and there's a couple little nicks here. Nothing substantial, you know, things that I can easily hit with a welder if I need to, and you know, fill them in and then grind it back flat if need be. But right now I have to make a decision as what we're going to do on this truck, and I'm leaning towards a service body, an 11-foot service body, because heavy equipment mechanics, off-road mechanics, you know, those mobile service guys around here at least, they like a four-wheel drive truck. They're looking for a truck with good ground clearance, and you can see, I mean, this thing has got some ground clearance. Granted, the transfer case is hanging down like it's going to be, but it is what it is. And I think putting a service body on this truck makes it more valuable than, in my area, more valuable than a wrecker, or more valuable than a flatbed, and definitely more valuable than the way it was with the dump bed on it, the way the dump bed was set up. Now, I want to address this because the guys are going to be saying this. That dump bed could have been left on this truck, and it would have worked well had I moved the axle back. Okay, I could have very well done that. However, one of the reasons for taking it off was that bed needed sandblasted and painted and needed a bunch of patchwork. The truck was in better shape than the bed. So I removed what was bringing the value down on the truck, and we'll put something on it that brings the value back up. I may have said this already too, but since we took the bed off, the bed's sold. It's already sold, and come to find out, the guy's taking that plate too. We end up selling that plate, which I was taking it off anyway, so the fact that we could sell it works out real well. He's actually going to put it on the same exact truck. The only difference is his truck has a 108 cab to axle. So ours is 84, and with his being a 108, it'll work much better. And he doesn't have this tank here. He has the midship tank that's inside the frame rail over on this side. That's what he's got on his truck. So it'll work out real well with his. And I considered putting that flatbed that I was working on for the yellow truck, the yellow Freightliner, before we sold it. I thought about putting that bed on here because it's built with a good tall bulkhead also, which would work well with this truck. And you know, it'd be set up pretty nice. But I believe the best value for us, the best thing we can do with this truck is put a service body on it, because I think that's going to bring the most money over any other of our options. But we'll see. I haven't decided yet. You guys leave in the comments what you think is the best. You know, a wrecker is an option too. We're going to say that. But here's the deal with a wrecker. If I put a wrecker on this, the cost to put a wrecker bed on this, the size appropriate wrecker bed for this truck is going to be an investment. It is a far bigger investment than we will get in a return. Like what it'll cost me to do it versus what it increases the value on this truck. It's far more expensive to do and a very small increase in value. So I'm not leaning towards that. But leave in the comments what you think we should do. And it's not going to dictate what we do. We do what's best for us, because we need to make this clear, because some guys have made comments that we need to make better videos. We need to be better editing. We need to be this. And you need to understand something. We are not a YouTube channel that fixes trucks. We're people that sell trucks and make YouTube videos. That's what we do. So if you're looking for all that glitz and glamour and editing and all that, probably not going to get it here. We try and do the best we can, but YouTube's not a career for us. This is what's most important. Trucks pay the bills. YouTube helps other people. All right, guys, if you like what we're doing, give us that thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already, what am I saying? I forget.
Leave your respectful comments below. That's what you
Yeah. Anyways, if you like what we're doing, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Leave your respectful comments down below, guys, and we will catch you on the next one.